My daughter destroyed all her brother's stuffed animals, and it probably saved our lives. I came home from grocery shopping to find 13-year-old Adrian in the living room, surrounded by the massacred remains of every single one of 2-year-old Bert's beloved toys, cotton stuffing everywhere like snow, fabric torn to shreds scattered across the carpet. Bert was screaming so hard his face was purple while my husband stood over Adrian shouting, "She's lost her mind," pointing at the destruction with a shaking finger. I was watching TV with Bert and she just started ripping apart every toy he owns like a psycho. I dropped the grocery bags and ran to pick up Bert, who was sobbing trying to piece together his favorite teddy bear. "Adrian, what have you done?" She looked up at me with tears streaming down her face, holding something in her closed fist while my husband grabbed her hard enough to leave marks. "Bert put something shiny in his mouth," she shouted, yanking her hand away from her father. I asked him where he got it and he pointed at his teddy bear, and when I looked inside I found these. She opened her hand to show a diamond ring, a gold necklace, and several earrings. That's when my husband's face went from angry to a flash of panic. "You had no right to destroy his toys over some costume jewelry," he quickly stammered. "They were hidden inside the teddy bear," Adrian said, looking at me instead of her father, her voice trembling but determined. "Bert could have choked to death, and I saw Dad in here last week with his sewing kit saying he was fixing rips." My husband laughed, but it sounded forced. "I was fixing them because they were falling apart, and that's just cheap jewelry I found at work during my security rounds," he said. I picked up one of the destroyed bears and found a small neat slit in the back that had been hand-sewn shut. The jewelry inside wasn't cheap like he said. It was real diamonds catching the light. "You hid jewelry in our baby's toys?" I asked. "I was going to pawn it," my husband said quickly, but his voice was getting higher and sweat was beading on his forehead. "Extra money for the family. You know how tight things have been." The elephant had 3 rings, the rabbit had a bracelet and earrings, the dinosaur had a watch. Every single toy had something metal inside that could have killed Bert if he swallowed it, Adrian said. "You're being dramatic," my husband responded. "I made sure the holes were secure," he then stammered. "Why not just keep them in a drawer?" I asked, staring at jewelry scattered across the floor. "Why hide them in baby toys?" My husband tried to grab the jewelry from the table, but Adrian was faster, scooping it up and backing away toward the wall. "I know why he hid them in the toys," Adrian said. "Give those to me right now." My husband suddenly shot up, moving toward her with his hands outstretched. Adrian ran behind me, pressing against my back. "This necklace has an engraving," Adrian said, her voice shaking as she held up a silver chain that caught the light. "It says, 'To Ruby, love mom,' on the back." "Who's Ruby?" I asked innocently. My husband's face started turning, and suddenly, I felt the room tilt and had to grab the couch for support, because Ruby Wilson was the woman from the news. She'd been found dead 3 weeks ago in the park near my husband's office, strangled with her jewelry missing. "How do you have Ruby Wilson's necklace?" I asked, afraid of his response. "I found it," my husband said quickly, his face draining of all color. "I found it at work during my security rounds and forgot to turn it in. Ruby Wilson was killed 3 weeks ago," I said slowly, my voice barely working. "The news said her jewelry was never found. People lose things all the time in the office complex," my husband said, but his hands were shaking now and his eyes kept darting to the door. "It must have fallen off before." "There are 12 pieces of jewelry here," Adrian shouted from behind me, tears streaming down her face and dripping onto the carpet. "Are you saying you just found all of them?" "Stop talking," my husband shouted, lunging for Adrian with his arms outstretched. I pulled her behind me while Bert started crying harder, sensing the danger. "Did you kill Ruby?" I said, the words coming out before I could stop them. His face changed completely, all pretense dropping away. "You don't know what you're talking about," my husband said, but his voice had gone flat and cold like I'd never heard it before. "You're listening to a child who's making up stories." I grabbed both the children, backing away from him as fast as I could. My husband smiled in a way I'd never seen before, and when he spoke his voice was different, like he'd finally stopped pretending. "You shouldn't have gone through Daddy's things, Adrian," he said. "Now I have no choice." Full story on the channel below.